the storm and assess damage and those kinds of things. And
were you the one that had the story earlier about someone charging $25 for lumber?
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation is, and I know we have Bob Sheets back with us here. And Bob, I know this is out of your area, but you are as informed about the whole overall issue as anybody else. Is there some kind of law under a state of emergency that people are not allowed to gouge in an emergency like this?
Well, most places, they actually pass those local ordinances that prohibit that kind of thing. It seems to be that that's difficult to enforce.
Because we have reports of people charging $25 for a piece of plywood here in Miami tonight.
Or a 6-volt battery.
Or a battery
right.
In Miami tonight. So we don't know specifically if that is the law here, I guess.
Well, again, they have those local kind of ordinances. Sometimes these kind of situations will bring out the best and the worst in people.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that we were talking here that in some ways we're seeing some of the best in people here in South Florida tonight, and we're pleased to see that. We did not get from you, when we were with you just a few minutes ago, the latest distance, just so we can go ahead and actually pin this thing down in terms of the distance of the center from us here.
The center is now 150 miles from Miami, and so moving at 15 miles per hour, that would be 10 hours. So that would be, I guess, about 8 a.m.
That puts us at 8 a.m. So, I mean, obviously, as you said all along, the 1 mile per hour plus or minus makes a difference quite a bit at the end.
Yes, it does. Certainly when we were out there 2 days in advance. Right now, it's in that 6, 7, 8 a.m. kind of time frame.
But does it not please you to have the center come over in daylight as opposed to have the most intense part of the storm happen at night? It seems like it would be so much more frightening.
Well, it is more frightening, but at the same time, I think you've just brought up a good point, is that during the daylight hours, what we find is that even though it's intense hurricane going, all those things are blowing around outside, people have a tendency to look outside and they say, well, maybe I can get out there and fix something, and we'll lose 1 or 2 or 3 lives by people venturing out. If it comes at night, like Hugo did, we didn't lose lives that way because it was frightening and they stayed indoors. So you need to advise people here tomorrow as this storm comes across, don't go outside and try to fix something that may be flapping loose out there.
Also, I guess we have not talked about this issue yet, but with all hurricanes comes tornadoes.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we've had some reports of some funnel clouds there. In our advisories, we're talking about now some isolated tornadoes, probably in those bands, the outer bands, going on up into the central part of Florida. So it's not just around the hurricane itself, but it'll kick off some of those instability situations that can create tornadoes.
And where were those funnel clouds reported? They were not in South Florida, though. You're saying they were up the state, or where were they?
Well, I've heard that we had some funnel clouds reported out in South Florida.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
yes,
we had
probably that
before.
first.
All right, Bob, thank you. We'll just let you get on there, maybe take a little breather on our time there. We'll give them an extra minute before somebody else is going to scoop them up.
We are going to turn our attention now to reporter Steve Abrams, who is standing by at the Broward County Governmental Center. Stephen, what can you tell us?
Well, Tom, we can tell you that the emergency coordinators held a briefing here about 20 minutes ago to bring us up to date, and they have some important information that I'm going to pass on to you. First of all, officials here at the Emergency Operating Center say there are about 15,000 people now housed in Broward County's 37 emergency shelters, and considering those shelters can hold about 100,000 people, officials are still very concerned about that low number. It either means an awful lot of people have gone to stay with friends or relatives, or a lot of people continue to ignore the county's mandatory evacuation order. And emergency coordinators have been voicing concern all day long that many people who live in the coastal evacuation areas have decided to hold up in their homes, and for some reason, many people seem convinced their lives are not in danger by refusing to leave the evacuation areas. As far as the evacuation transportation is concerned, and this is some updated information for you, the county has been running free bus service all day to get people out of the evacuation areas and to the emergency shelters. We can tell you the bus service has now been discontinued. As a matter of fact, they stopped running those buses about half an hour ago. We have been asking emergency coordinators all day long, when is it too late to evacuate, and they have just given us an answer. If you're not where you want to be in the next 30 minutes, then stay put, because you are too late in Broward County. Now, we also want to tell you about the emergency shelters that are not taking any more people because they are full. First of all, Hollywood Hills High School is full. They are not allowing any more people. That's on Sterling Road. Sheridan Park Elementary School is full. That's in Hollywood. And Lauderhill Middle School is full. They also are not accepting any more people. And one final note, the Sheridan Vocational Center is not taking any more people. That's a special care facility, and they can't handle any more people there. So once again, Hollywood Hills High School, Sheridan Park Elementary, Lauderhill Middle School and Sheridan Vocational Center not taking any more people, Tom.
Stephen, as the storm approaches and marches towards us, what is the mood of folks at the shelter? Are they becoming more anxious? Are they staying calm?
Well, Tom, we're in the government center, which is the headquarters for the emergency coordinators, and everyone's pretty calm and collected here. I mean, they've been planning this for a long, long time. They're holding regular briefings here to bring us up to date. We have no reports of anything strange happening at the emergency shelters. As I said, the only thing strange is that there's only 15,000 people in those shelters that can hold 100,000 people. So you got to ask yourself, where are all those other folks? Are they still somewhere along the coast, or are they staying with friends and relatives?
Steve, it's Brian. We've been sort of speculating on that. So you're saying even there at the this emergency operations center, which, just so you folks understand, this is the place where the counties are run. All the counties in the emergency zone here are being run out of these emergency operations centers.
Exactly.
We've been speculating about where are the people, where have they gone, and we don't know. Those people there don't know, have not done any canvassing just to see how many people have stayed out there on the beach yet.
Well, we did, Brian. We were out this afternoon around dinner time and saw an awful lot of people playing around on the beach, tourists, folks that live there, people who live in beachfront properties who are not leaving. They say that, I was astounded. I asked one gentleman if he thought his property was more important than his life, and he quite frankly said, yeah, I'm going to take my chances.
But with no specific reason to do that. That's what we speculated on here just a moment ago, because we talked to people up in the Morningside neighborhood here in Miami, or Jerry Helfman talked to them up there, and they essentially said that they had made a conscious decision. It wasn't that they were misinformed, it wasn't that they were uninformed, it wasn't that they were anything else. They apparently knew what to expect, but for whatever reason decided that they were better off staying where they were, and it's a perplexing mentality.
Yeah, well, you say these people know what to expect, but they tell us 98% of the people who live here have never been through this, and how do you explain 150-mile-an-hour winds?
Right.
Perhaps you can explain it in a word: stubbornness.
Exactly.
Well, or I don't know. I guess it's going to be fascinating when all this is over to try and figure out how you motivate people to do the right thing. Because, not only, I think that some people misunderstand the issue here. Not only are they putting themselves at peril, but they're causing a problem for everyone else. If they're injured in this thing, or if they're killed, they are then become a problem for everybody else that has done the right thing. I mean, it is not only is it foolish from a personal safety standpoint, it's incredibly inconsiderate to what you are subjecting your friends to and your neighbors and other people. They're going to have to go back and pick up the pieces, and you're not going to be able to participate in that because you're going to be hurt or you're going to be dead potentially. So I don't understand. I just don't understand what's gone wrong with the thinking of these people.
Well, frankly, I don't understand either, Brian.
All right, Steve Abrams, thanks for that live report tonight. We are going to turn our attention now to reporter Beverly White. We understand she is standing by right now, live in Carroll City. Bev?
Yes, Tom, things are so calm here in Carroll City, you might find it hard to believe that there's a storm on the way. There's no rain. People are lounging leisurely here on the lawn in front of Miami Carroll City Senior High School. But indeed, this is a shelter, and 1,300 people thus far have turned out at a facility that the county has opened, and they can accommodate some 2,200 more. Now, when we went inside earlier tonight, we got lots of video of the people preparing for what could very well be a long stand, again, at Miami Carroll City Senior High School. Now, they've had some transportation problems in bringing people over from the other facilities, including one at North Miami Beach. The high school there has an overflow crowd. They'd like to bring the balance of those folks over here, but they haven't been able to do that yet. Meanwhile, we spoke to the refugees here, the hurricane survivors, so to speak, or veterans anyway, from previous storms all over South Florida, the folks who are certainly proud to consider themselves among past hurricane survivors.
There was one hurricane when I lived in West Hollywood, and when I came out in the morning, boy, there was trash all over the place. And that's, I guess that was it. I was all boarded up, and they could get pretty dangerous.
That's why you're out here tonight. You tell me this is the first time you ever evacuated.
I was
Why?
scared. I'll tell you why. The temperature, I don't know, the barometer, is it, kept dropping. And the speed increased 10 miles every time he announced it. And when he said 150 miles an hour, I said, it's time to leave.
You know, it's very difficult for a group like this that are from such strange backgrounds and cultures to get in a situation like this where they're so close and still get along.
People seem very nice, everybody. I thought there was going to be a bunch of rowdies here, you know, but no. And everything is, they're all trying to help each other.
You didn't leave your house for the shelter last time, but you came to the shelter today.
First of all, I didn't even know anything about a shelter then. I forgot what year it was, but I didn't even know anything about a shelter. So that was in Coconut Grove, and I just went and, you know, stayed with my family in the house. So now, and I'm living alone, so that's why I came to the shelter.
So many people have yet to heed the warnings. As Brian Norcross mentioned, it's hard to understand why you wouldn't come out. These facilities are free. They do have food and some limited bedding, but they certainly encourage you to come out and bring your own food, your own water, your own bedspread and sleeping bag if you have it. The location of this facility, 3422 Northwest 187th Street in Carroll City. Again, they can handle another 2,200 people. So if you're driving around and listening to this broadcast on the simulcast on Y100, take the initiative. Come on over. They've got parking, people willing to help you carry your load in from your car if need be, and plenty of friendly folks, including the American Red Cross, to help make it happen. Now, this place opened at 10 a.m. They tell me the crowds really started to form around 3, but they'll continue to take people even after they reach their capacity. But right now, Tom, they're not even close. So if you've got a place, you need a place to stay, Carroll City High School is a good place to start.
All right, Beverly White, thanks for that live report. Brian, perhaps we could talk about this just for a moment. The fact that people are not necessarily flocking to the shelters as officials had hoped, is that necessarily bad?
Well, it's not necessarily bad, but you know, we've been around and we've lived in South Florida a while, and I think have a feeling for what this city is like. And we don't have a homogeneous city here, and we have a lot of people here, a lot of people that really move down here on their own, you know?
Well, the reason I'm asking that question is...
I mean, it might be good, but except for the fact that we have reporters that have been all over Dade and Broward in evacuation zones and running into stupid people that are saying stupid things constantly.
What I'm saying, though, is if there are a lot of people or a significant portion of people who are staying with friends or relatives or other people inland, would they be better off, perhaps, there than...
Well, they would definitely be better off there, although I can tell you that my concern is for those inland people, because most people don't have shutters, and the way the shelter program is going here now, I mean, these shelters look like luxury hotels compared to what they could have looked like if we had a huge turnout. So I don't know why, if anyone was anywhere here and in any kind of potential danger and thinking about trying to get into a hallway or something like that and put mattresses over them. I mean, if you find yourself in that kind of situation, I don't care where you live, especially if you're in the western part of the county, we've got shelters in Dade and Broward and west sections. You could probably walk down the street or certainly get in your car and drive 2 or 3 minutes here and be at a shelter. So I don't know why anybody now, the way this has worked out, would stay in any sort of place, anywhere, forget the evacuation zones, anywhere that was threatening.
Yeah. We've got some more questions, some of your questions that we're going to get to. Here's one of them. It says, the hot water solar panel on the roof of the home. The question is, how do you drain it? Are you familiar with that?
Well, yeah, we have, especially some of the older homes, and there are new solar panels as well, I guess. My recommendation would be just that you shut the water off. There may be, if somebody has some idea on some reason that I don't know, that you would necessarily need to drain it. I would think that having it be heavy and full of water would be better off in that situation than to have it be light and therefore be able to have the wind get under it more easily. I would shut off the water in case something does happen to it so you don't have the water leak, but we recommend in any case during the storm, during the intense part of the storm, in other words, sometime around midnight tonight before the winds start up, and we'll be able to give you very precise timing on that because we'll be able to see it on the radar, is to go out and shut off water into the evacuation zone just so that if the water comes in and the water main breaks, you don't end up with a flood in your house.
What about skylights? Is there anything you can do to keep water from rushing in from the skylight?
Well, not now.
Okay.
You know, maybe if you had, all you could have done is put some plywood up there or something, but you'd be putting it on the inside, and if something broke the skylight, the plywood would not stay. You'd have to have some kind of permanent sort of arrangement up there, I would think.
Reporter Susan Wallace is standing by in our newsroom right now, and she's going to update us right now on the homeless situation. Susan, what can you tell us?
Well, Tom, about an hour ago, we told you that we had visited the area under the expressway, and by some estimates, the estimate of one gentleman we spoke to, there were 800 people still living in cardboard shanties, if you will. Well, the bottom line is an hour and 15 minutes later, there are now Miami police buses down there rounding these people up. Take a look. The buses are concentrating in an area primarily down by Bicentennial Park, just along Biscayne Bay. They're bringing the buses in order to transport these people to shelters, area high schools, basically anywhere but along the coast, although Miami police are still having one heck of a time convincing a lot of these people to go because a lot of them are not convinced that we're facing a serious hurricane. Listen to what this officer said.
About 80% want to just stay out here and tackle the storm.
80% of them want to stay?
I tell you, about every 20 people we see going two, only about 2 get inside the bus.
What, they think they can just ride it out?
They think so. When we make it through, it's all going to be underwater.
Wow. How many people do you suppose so far you've gotten to get on the buses?
We transported up to just our bus alone over 200 easy.
200, you're taking them to a high school?
We're taking them anywhere that they want to take them.
So about 200 people have been picked up by buses within the last couple of hours, at least within the last hour. But again, many more still out there. We had an argument with one guy, and he said he was from Los Angeles, California. He'd withstood earthquakes, and he was prepared to withstand this wimpy windstorm, as he called it. But he's got a thing or two coming once the rains start, and I imagine Miami police will do a final sweep through that area sometime tonight, although they claim this was their last call. They were putting out the word on loudspeakers that this was it. They weren't coming back, but I imagine they'll have to make at least one more swing there once the rain starts. So
I guess it's not really surprising if we have able-bodied homeowners that aren't using common sense here, that we would expect the homeless people all of a sudden to be the bastions of common sense. It's not a surprising thing, I guess.
Furthermore, they're not receiving the type of information that we're putting out. There isn't a telephone or a television or a radio that's working under that expressway, so they're hearing rumors. Again, we talked about this earlier, the misinformation that is swirling around under that expressway, and a lot of people just don't believe it.
Right, and I guess that just the nature of the problem, of the homeless problem, they tend not to believe what they're told anyway.
Absolutely.
Right. All right, Susan, I know you'll stay on top of that situation down there, and you know, it's a helpless feeling. What can we do? I mean, the other people are not helpless, but it's really a helpless feeling. I don't what can we do beyond what we've done?
It's true. I heard a report, although it's unconfirmed, that some of the people here in Dade County under house arrest are actually being let go. Obviously, the fear being that those folks might wind up being trapped in their homes, can't get out, and wind up being killed or injured when the storm hits. I can't confirm that, but I'd love for somebody, perhaps in our newsroom, to get on the line to see if that report is true. Susan Wallace, I understand, might be able to answer that question for us.
It's
Susan?
funny you mentioned this. I took a call from a corrections officer about 3 hours ago, and his first concern was his charges, who are sitting at home under house arrest. And I hate to say this, but the bottom line is it's a free-for-all tonight because they can't contain these people in their homes. They can't order them to stay in homes, specifically within the evacuation zone. So the bottom line is, you know, they're free to do as they please. Obviously, they're not being encouraged to leave Dade County, but there's not much the county can do at this point. Furthermore, you guys may have reported this earlier, but I understand all courts have been canceled through at least the next 24 hours, and they called to reiterate, you know, to let us know that we should tell people.
Well, I'll tell you what we reported, Susan. We reported that everything was canceled tomorrow.
Right.
So I think that covers the courts and and everything else too. And we're just going to have to see. I mean, I think that the common sense tells us that we're just after tomorrow. By tomorrow afternoon, we'll have some gauge of where we stand as a community. And at that point, we'll just have to see what can be done for Tuesday, Wednesday, and the foreseeable future.
I think the next 24 hours are going to be very crucial. I think we all have to be very patient because I think what we come out of our houses to tomorrow afternoon is going to be very frightening and initially very chaotic. And I think, you know, we've got a long recovery ahead of us.
Well, judging by the fact that there's very little or no supplies left in the stores, hopefully we have a lot of supplies in people's homes. ready to stay in their homes once this is all over. One of the things, Tom, that we don't know here is how long we're going to be with you folks at home. I mean, we have emergency power. We're on Y100. We don't know how long we're going to be able to transmit on Channel 4. We're going to do our best to stay with you absolutely as long as we can. But the truth of the matter is that once this all starts now, coming up maybe 2.5 hours from now, we have done everything we can do at that point.
We have word that Channel 4's Ed Odell is on the line with us, and with a report, I believe, of the first confirmed death in the Bahamas. Is that right, Edward?
That's right, Tom. We just received word that a man has died. Circumstances unknown at this time, but it has been confirmed that a man has died in Eleuthera. Now, that was the outer island that Hurricane Andrew made its hardest hit on, went across the northern edge of Eleuthera, and we do understand that a man is dead. We don't know the circumstances yet, and I think that's because they have just discovered that the man was killed. So what they're theorizing here, authorities are theorizing that as the night wears on and the sun comes up, they're going to find a few more tragedies. Now, obviously, the damage on Eleuthera, and I say this obviously, is extensive because we have also just learned that the British Navy has been cleared to go in and assist the Bahamians on Eleuthera. So it is clear, it is obvious that damage and possibly injuries are very severe on the island of Eleuthera.
Ed, we saw the eye of the storm move right over the northern end of Eleuthera, so they didn't probably take the full brunt of it, but being a low-lying, a very narrow island there, no doubt it was a harrowing time on that northern end of the island.
It must have been, as you just said, Brian, that is a low-lying area. It's a very narrow, 4 miles wide at its widest point, basically.
All right, Ed, we want to come back here because we have about an hour and a half here to try and address any questions remaining for people here in South Florida. Thank you, Edward, and stay safe out there. And if anything else comes up, be sure and check back in with us.
Will do, Brian.
Okay.
The most important thing, I think, out of that report, obviously, is reporting the death. Hurricane Andrew is now a killer. So we have a killer storm potentially heading this way.
Well, I suspect that we have more than one person dead in the Bahamas. The fact is that Eleuthera, the northern end of Eleuthera, I'm sure we have no good communications with there. We probably have no good communications with parts of New Providence and maybe even the city of Nassau, judging by Ed's earlier reports of lines down and all that kind of thing. You would think the telephone service, which is a little precarious in the Bahamas anyway, is no doubt down. So we find that in storms like this, the death toll comes in later on because we just can't communicate.
Why don't we get to some of the questions that you have? Here's one. Do you turn the gas off at the meter or the tank during the storm like this?
You want to turn it off at the tank. You want to have the gas confined in the tank. You're talking about a propane tank here.
Right.
And the gas grills, if my gas grill is in the house, and it's not going to be used in the house, but when the storm is over, the gas grill is a wonderful thing to be able to use to cook. Sterno is a horrible thing to try. You ever try and boil water on sterno, you could grow old trying to do that. So a gas grill is a wonderful thing, but go ahead and bring it in the house. If it's a little dirty, put something on the floor if you're worried about that, but get it in because you're going to find that very, very useful if we have an extended period without power.
Might be important to point out right now that if you have, like, say, a charcoal grill where you use charcoal for cooking, you don't want to bring that inside and light a fire with charcoal because those fumes can be deadly.
Right. You don't want to light any kind of cooking fire inside. In actual fact, there are some things you can cook with inside, but why? There's no reason to. First of all, if the power's out, the air conditioning is going to be out here. It is going to be stifling hot here this week, as it always is in August, and even after tropical storms, it's even worse. I mean, tropical weather systems, hurricanes, it's even worse. So there's no reason to be cooking inside. So just plan on doing it. Just make a commitment. You're going to do all your cooking out of doors on a grill or on sterno or whatever it is. The other thing, that as we come now to the point where we're in striking distance, why don't we go ahead and put up the radar? We are in striking distance of this storm approaching us here. You see the hurricane force winds are now the edge of that core there, now approaching Bimini. we want to reiterate, and we want to reiterate it loud and often, do not, under any circumstances, use candles during the storm. Candles are in no way unsafe after the storm. There's nothing wrong with having candles handy. But if the power goes out during the storm, do not use candles, because in Hurricane Hugo and in other hurricanes and other places, many, many deaths have been reported because there's a crack, the wind separates the door, a gust of air comes in, knocks the candle over, there's a fire, and the wind from the hurricane fans the flames in the most dramatic way, and it turns into a flash fire. So do not light any flame of any kind during the actual hurricane conditions or the strong wind conditions itself. Use flashlights or sit there in the dark. When it's over, then use candles carefully like you would any other day.
You talked about this a couple of times, actually several times within the last couple of hours, about finding a secure area of your home, perhaps a closet or something like that. Make sure when you go to that closet that you have your supplies with you. That might sound stupid, but it's true. You know, when this storm starts approaching, you know, you might lose your faculties about you and start thinking about panicking rather than doing the things you have to do to get settled. Make sure you take things like a first aid kit inside that space with you, because you never know if you're going to be injured. Brian, you talk about roofs coming off of homes in this kind of wind. And of course, you know, anything could fall on top of you. Even if the walls around you stay secure, you could still be injured by debris from above.
Right. I love mattresses because mattresses make very good shelters. Maybe a good little thing about this storm is that it is going to go by relatively quickly. Some hurricanes have taken forever to go by, and this one is going to move right on through. It will be very intense somewhere here late tonight and in the early morning hours, but it is going to keep on going. So if the worst thing that ever happens to you is you get stuck under a mattress somewhere in some closet for a few hours, then you can consider yourself likely if you come out of it feeling good and being healthy. So I would not hesitate as a last resort in your home, if you feel in any way threatened as this storm approaches, get yourself, and I love the word hunker down, underneath a mattress in a closet with, as you say, a first aid kit. And take yourself some beverage that you're going to have there while you're there, so that you feel comfortable. Take your radio with you, as you will be with you as long as we possibly can on Y100. So find a safe place. There's just no reason not to do every single thing you can do.
Perhaps this is a good time, because we talked about it earlier, to remind people to fill up the bathtubs. To make sure that you have adequate water for flushing your toilet and those kinds of things.
Yeah, it would not be a bad time over the next couple hours. And we're not going to have any problems with water until well after midnight. But the problem that comes along is when the power goes out, because the water system runs on pumps that pressurize the water system and drive the water through the pipes so that you can turn on the tap. And so when the power goes out, maybe way down the line, not even in your neighborhood, the pumps will lose power and therefore will lose pressure, and then you may not be able to fill it. And besides that, at that point is when the water goes bad, because the impurities in the water system that are held out because of the pressure in the system then get mixed up in there, and that's when we get things like a boil water order and things like that. And you want to get this bathtub filling, jug filling business out of the way before all that happens. So sometime within the next hour here, I think would be a wonderful time, although certainly the county water people would ask us to have you spread that process out a little bit. Not everybody do it at the same time, but sometime in the next hour and a half, go ahead and get that job done.
One of the things I made sure to do is at my home is put my toolbox inside that secure area for my family, because you never know if you're going to need some kind of tool, whether it be a hammer or a wrench or whatever, to help you out of a tough situation there.
Right. All right, let's go to Dade County Emergency Operations Center with a 10:30 briefing.
Once again, and I'm Virginia Sanchez here at the Emergency Operations Center for Metro Dade County. With me at this time is Mr. Spiro Canton from Southern Bell, who's going to talk to you about mobile phones, what kind of service we can expect from Southern Bell in the next day or so, and also address any questions concerning the operation of 911. Before we do that, there are a couple of messages I'd like to get across. That is, Miami International Airport, as of 10:10 p.m., still remained open. We were holding off on departure of 2 cargo planes at that time, and as far as I am told, those have not yet taken off, and the airport is not officially closed. As soon as there is an official announcement, we will inform you. As far as Jackson Memorial Hospital is concerned, approximately 250 maternity cases have checked into the East Tower. They have successfully boarded up and closed Jackson North. And I am told the emergency room, along with the trauma room, is quiet at this time. However, they are on standby, awaiting any type of emergencies or injuries. I'm also told that the emergency room is also being boarded up, but it's only this is only being done as a precaution at this time. Also, the city of Miami Beach would like me to tell all of you that Miami Beach is still transporting residents from City Hall. City Hall is located at 1700 Convention Center Drive. For those people who cannot get to City Hall on their own, there are 3 phone numbers they can call, and someone will try to coordinate with you and getting you to City Hall so that we can evacuate you from the beach. Those 3 numbers are 673-7111, 673-7870, and 673-7142. Let me just repeat those 3 numbers again. This only pertains to City of Miami Beach, and we're talking about individuals who want to get to the City Hall in order to leave the beach. The numbers are 673-7111, 673-7870, and 673-7142. If you don't have any questions at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Canton from Southern Bell.
Thank you, Virginia. Just to segue into that a little bit, we do have technicians, emergency technicians, at all the hospitals, the major hospitals in Dade County and in Monroe County, Baptist, Jackson, and Fisherman's Hospital in the Keys. We also have service technicians at the 911 centers throughout Dade County. So they are standing by in case anything should happen as far as an emergency is concerned. We also have technicians all over the southeast that are standing by. The way it works is that when we have an all clear for Florida Power and Light, our crews go in and start repairing lines. Overhead lines, of course, are the first ones that we find out about. The underground lines we find out about and take care of. Also, we have people in Alabama, Georgia, North Florida that are standing by in case they are needed. As far as cellular, we don't anticipate any problems with cellular. The towers are very sturdy structures. They have 3 faces on each one of these towers, and when a major storm like this may come along, they will blow hopefully right through the tower, and there should be no problem at all. Of course, the CO landlines, the central office landlines, if they go down, that may affect some type of service, but we don't anticipate any problems with the mobile telephone. If you have electricity right now, and most of Dade County does, we just urge you to start charging those batteries in case the electricity does go down and you may not have power to charge the batteries. Most large batteries last about 45 minutes as far as talk time, and on standby about 8 hours. So if you have any more questions about that, I'm free to talk about cellular. We also have rehabilitation
This is
equipment.
Spiro Canton with Southern Bell. Obviously, the phone company is going to do their best to keep the service running. I can tell you that they were reasonably successful in Charleston during Hurricane Hugo, and the cellular service kept going during Hurricane Hugo there because the cellular service runs on individual sites. So even though they lost some sites, you could still communicate through the next cell site. So we can hope that that will be the case here.
Certainly do. It's really amazing. We want to give you some new numbers. This is for the state of Florida Emergency Center, and we are told that there were so many calls coming up into this first number, the 1-800-342-3557 number that we have been giving out for hours now, that they've opened up a second line. And again, this is toll free. So if you cannot get through on the first one, please dial 1-800-682-3362. This
Now,
is statewide.
Yeah, but now what question would you ask these people? Who are these people?
Exactly. That's we just got this information from our producer, and what they are saying is they are sort of a clearinghouse for all questions. But as far as we are concerned, we have the local.
I would call those numbers the last resort. I have trouble imagining anybody in Tallahassee is as well informed as people in Dade County. So keep those numbers handy if you absolutely have to talk to somebody and you can't get a hold of anyone here. But let's see if we can answer the questions.
Speaking of which,
locally, we
do have some questions. One, we have our help center open, and so a lot of folks have been calling with questions. Should people leave their air conditioning on during the storm?
Well, the air conditioning is going to go off when the power goes off.
Right.
And as soon as the power in your neighborhood starts even flickering, shut that air conditioner off, because there's nothing worse for air conditioners than interrupted power or variations in power, so that you have the air conditioner once the power comes back on, because you could do permanent damage to it if there are power surges.
Is it a good idea just to shut the entire circuit breaker off?
What I suggested at my house is we turned off all the circuit breakers except for one with a light, so we would know what the power situation was. So we know when the power came back on, it came back on steady. But yes, you want to get the power off to all the appliances as soon as the power starts going bad.
Sliding glass doors, for those folks who did not have a chance to board them up, what do they do?
Well, what you do is get away from them, because the sliding glass doors, the glass is very, very strong, and normally the failure point in a sliding glass door is the mounting system, that the doors actually buckle in. Last night we were suggesting, and it may be too late for you to do this unless you happen to have the materials at your home now, is you put a bar across, like on a barn door, where you go and put a big bar down to block the door. Well, somehow, if on either side of the sliding glass door, you can somehow securely, I use that word, a big S on securely, go into the concrete with bolts on either side with a big 2x4 to help support the door, because the doors actually buckle in the middle because it's such a big, long expanse of aluminum. So, other than that, the other thing you would do is, at the bottom of the door, the poles you put in there for security, I would try and put those in. Some doors you can do this, and some doors you can't, because you can't get in. If you have a way to get in, to put it on inside and outside, because that again will provide a little bit of lack of play in the door.
But of course, this is all precautionary. Please do not take these measures once the storm hits us.
Right. Well, and the bottom line is, if you haven't done it now, chances are there's nothing you can do, and you just want to stay away from any glass. And sliding glass doors just comes in the category of a window. Sliding glass doors are in some ways even worse than windows, because the structure, the integrity of the structure can fail.
You might be wondering what's going on around town in terms of transportation. Cruise ships, by the way, all of them cleared out. What about a cruise ship? I would be very, very frightened to be on one, but I'm sure they're steering around the storm.
They know what they're doing. Hurricanes are not foreign at all to them, because even though very few hurricanes come ashore, many hurricanes come through the Caribbean, come through the Atlantic, where they go and just don't affect anybody, or come close enough that they have to deal with them all the time. So cruise ships are very powerful, and they know how fast they can go. They know what the seas are like. So if someone left here this afternoon on a cruise ship, feel good for them. They were part of the lucky.
Right. Airport closed down at 8 o'clock tonight. I was at the airport about 1:30. Talk about a madhouse. Right. Now, Miami International is a madhouse anyway. Right. But at 1:30, a heck of a lot of folks were just getting the heck out of Dodge at that point.
We just heard from emergency operation. I guess they maybe have a couple of cargo flights going out, but no more commercial flights are going out. So I assume they were saying earlier today that a lot of people are going to get stuck there, because these are people that had reservations tomorrow and Wednesday and thought, let's go out there and get out today, but all the flights were going to be full and they were going to stand by, and they were just going to put them up there. But the Miami International Airport is a pretty substantial building, so I suspect that a lot of tourists are going to be our friends here for a few days until they get that airport back open again. And we don't have any reason to think that it's going to take a long time. They have to clear the debris out there. But in past hurricanes, the airport has been flooded, and we don't think that's going to happen. So I think they'll get it back going pretty quickly.
You and I were talking earlier about hospitals and the fact that the hospitals are saying, look, only on an emergency basis. But we do know that Jackson Memorial Hospital has put out an alert to any pregnant woman who will use Jackson. If they are anywhere near 3 weeks from their due date, they have actually been called to the hospital. And earlier, Jerry Helfman went out there to get the story. Let's look at that tape.
At Jackson Memorial Hospital, the hallways are lined with pregnant women. The hospital has issued a call for any Jackson patient with a high-risk pregnancy or any woman due to deliver within 3 weeks to come here. Every corner has women. So far, 250 are here. They're expecting 400.
We asked them not to bring anybody with them, and some people are coming with children, with significant others, and we can't put them up, so we have to give them a list of shelters and ask them to leave.
Your biggest challenge?
Is to get them to A, come in, and B, not bring anybody with them.
You must feel safe being here.
Yes, I do. I feel very safe.
Safer here than at home?
Yeah. They explained it to me. I wanted to go home, but they explained it to me, and they told me, stay here because it's better.
Where's your husband?
My husband's at home with the kids.
Would he like to be here with you, I'm sure?
Yeah, I just talked to him on the phone, and he feels really bad. He wants to come and get me as soon as possible.
We're not a shelter. We're not a hotel. We're trying to take care of as many people who need medical attention. That's what we're here for.
How do you accommodate, will you be able to accommodate 400 pregnant women?
We hope they all come here, and if they come here, we'll take care of them. It might not be the Ritz, but it will be safe, and there will be medical people here to take care of them.
You're having contractions right now?
Yeah.
When are these boys going to come out, these twins of yours?
They're supposed to come in October, so.
But you think they're going to come early?
I hope not, but I feel so, yeah.
You don't want a hurricane baby?
No.
When it became really evident this hurricane was coming here, how nervous did it make you?
Made me real nervous. I bit my fingernails off and everything.
You must feel safe now, though, in the hospital.
Kind of yes and kind of no, because I'm worried about my mother. Her being at home, it's not too safe to be at home right now.
The hospital is fully staffed with physicians, not enough to deliver 400 babies, but there's no expectation that's going to happen. Most of these women are here just for precautionary reasons. Back to you.
All right, Jerry, thanks very much. That's amazing. 250 women already, Brian Norcross.
Let's take a look at the radar picture, because this is going to tell us exactly when we can expect this storm. Clearly, you can see the spiral bands in the storm feeding in. It looks to me like Broward County is going to feel this first, just because of the way the shape of the storm. You can see right up there by the L in FTL is a squall line coming in, and the very intense part of the storm, probably the hurricane force part of the storm, is that yellow and green spiral that's just east of Miami. That appears to be the hurricane force part of the storm.
So you said we could tell what time. When can we expect these, do you suppose?
Well, with the storm, looks like about 30. Again, we're looking at that spiral band probably affecting the coast in Broward or Palm Beach County at midnight, between midnight, 12:30, something like that. And those hurricane force winds, I think we'll probably see about 2 a.m.
I don't know what's worse, the anticipation of this thing or the storm itself.
Now that we can actually see it sitting there, it's funny, it almost looks like our art department drew it on there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really
I mean,
does.
it looks like a graphic that we would use for a newscast or something. I mean, it is a real live hurricane. That's live radar out of the National Hurricane Center in Miami.
With it being this close, I think maybe we ought to reiterate some telephone numbers. Earlier, we had been talking about some folks who were not able to get out of Miami Beach, especially those in need. So
no, that's not the phone numbers we want. It's the phone numbers we just gave you upstairs. So if you guys upstairs would tell us, let's hold off until we can actually put them on the screen, because giving phone numbers orally, I don't know how much good we do with that. But for anyone that is still in Miami Beach, the bottom line is, and you want to evacuate, and we want you to evacuate, the evacuation point is City Hall. If you can get to City Hall, the buses are still running to get you out of there. And if you can't get to City Hall, they will come help you still on Miami Beach. And we're going to give you those phone numbers to call so that you can tell them exactly where you are, so that they will get you to City Hall, where you can still get on a bus at this late hour. Okay, so as soon as we have those...
Here are the numbers right now, we're told.
Great.
Take a look. Miami Beach evacuation. Here are the numbers. 673-7111, 673-7870, 673-7142. Please do not delay any longer. This is probably about the last couple of hours that you're going to be able to get out.
This is going to be it, because they're not going to endanger the bus drivers and the buses and everything else once these winds come in here after midnight. We're within the next couple hours of actually totally shutting this thing down, and then everybody sits and waits it out, and we hope for the best at the end.
We, of course, want to continue broadcasting as long as we possibly can, and we want to put an appeal out right now to anyone who works for a cable company, because during the height of the storm, there is a chance that our broadcast tower might fall, and we would, of course, go off the air. Beginning at 3 a.m., we're going to put our signal up on satellite. We're offering any cable company the chance to bring it down and put it on cable on Channel 4 so the viewers can continue to get the valuable hurricane information. Write this down. If you work for a cable company or if you have a satellite dish, our signal is going up on SBS 514. That's SBS 514. Again, we're putting our signal on the satellite at 3 a.m. And if by chance we go off the air due to our tower falling, we'd like to urge any cable company to put us on Channel 4 cable. And don't forget, we're also simulcasting right now on radio station Y100.
That's 100.7 FM. Ironically, you folks may not know, we're building a brand new state-of-the-art hurricane-proof tower in right along the Dade-Broward line up there, but it isn't done. And we're not working on that yet. We're working on essentially the original tower for this television station, and this was the first television station in Florida. So as we may not be with you for television deep into this storm, although I must say it is just a matter of luck.
That's right.
It really is on where the core intense part and the damage is going to be.
I want to go back to some of the questions that you all have been posing to our help center. Brian, as an evacuee, how am I going to know when it's safe to go back home?
You don't have to worry about knowing. They'll tell you. If you're evacuated into the shelter, you'll be kept well informed of what's going on in your neighborhood. There will be people there. They man these shelters. You're not going to be abandoned in the shelter. The whole time you're in the shelter, in both counties, you're going to be staffed with officials that are in radio contact with central operations. So there's not going to be any question of when it's going to be okay.
And they will also know what streets and so forth that are open?
Right. And by that, of course, with media, there's television, there's radio in the shelters. So as we may be working with Y100, because obviously if a lot of, depending on what happens with our tower, if a lot of the cable systems are out, television is probably not going to be the mode of media tomorrow, just depending on how it goes here tonight. We really don't know. But in any case, we'll be providing the information, and the officials will be providing the information. There won't be any question.
You had some questions, too, about...
We have plenty here. Why don't I'll give you some of those. Over there.
Oh, good.
And we'll sort through these. When will the heavy winds be finished by? And another one, what will be the duration of the storm? We think this will be over. The heavy winds will probably be over by noon tomorrow, and the storm will essentially be gone by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the sun will be out, and it'll be a warm, it'll be a hot day here tomorrow afternoon. It's a small, relatively fast-moving storm, and the weather after hurricanes is actually quite good.
What about Turkey Point? I remember reading earlier where the nuclear plants were shut down.
Well, yes, they shut down. I did see that they shut down Turkey Point. And Turkey Point, if any entity in South Florida is going to survive a hurricane, you can trust me when I tell you that Turkey Point was built to exceed any kind of hurricane that can come along. So of all the things we have to worry about here tonight, Turkey Point is not one.
What about atriums? This person wants to know.
Well, atriums are, if you're talking about an atrium that's got some sort of a glass roof on it, I think you're in trouble and you got to treat it as a window. So you just don't want to be anywhere near any exposed glass. I don't care whether it's an atrium or a window or a sliding glass door, and I don't care how big the window is, because it's a matter of risk. Mm-hmm. If you have a window, if you have a porthole in your house, how much do you want to bet that nothing is going to come along and hit that thing blowing at 130 or 140 miles an hour at the moment you're looking out?
Right.
I mean, say it's 5%. Is that enough to risk looking out? So how much do you want to risk your face at that instant? So I don't care what the window is, short of being a telescope sticking through a wall, you should not be looking out of windows during the intense part of this hurricane.
Listen to this one. Is the Coast Guard going to continue to be alert for Cuban refugees coming by rafts and or boats?
Well, let's hope that the Cuban refugees are listening to Radio Marty or whatever the Cuban information service is about this hurricane. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
People in condos are wondering how high up can they be and still be safe. I would assume these are not the ones right along the shoreline because they should be out. No questions.
Well, we can't address the condo situation. I just had another thought, by the way, about the Coast Guard thing. The Coast Guard is shut down, has been shut down since this afternoon. So whether we're talking about refugees or we're talking about boaters that are out there acting stupidly, the Coast Guard is not at your service and will not be until the storm is over. Okay, now, high-rises and condominiums. No one anywhere in South Florida should be in a high-rise condominium on the high floors, okay? Let's forget the evacuation zone, because the fact is you shouldn't be in a high-rise condominium in the evacuation zone, in any place in the evacuation zone, okay? So let's address the inland sections, and then we'll come back to talk about people that have foolishly stayed in the evacuation zone. In the inland sections, you want to be on as low a floor as possible. If it's not an evacuation zone, that means we don't anticipate flooding. But the winds will be significantly higher at the upper levels of the condominium. So the threat, even if it's a shuttered apartment up there, the threat is significantly higher. And I can't stress that word significantly enough. An increase of 10 miles per hour in wind makes a dramatic difference in the force of that wind. This isn't, if you go from 120 to 130, it's not 10 miles per hour to 120. It's that little tiny bit. It's more of a geometric thing. I don't know exactly what the ratios are and how much you have to go up to double, but it's significantly more. That's why we have categories of hurricanes, because Category 4 can do twice as much damage as Category 3 because that little increase. So at the top of the condominium, where you don't have any friction of the ground slowing the wind down, you're going to have significantly more stress on the shutters, on the windows, whatever. So you want to get down to the bottom floor or the second floor at the highest, and you want to get inside the building where there are no windows. It's just that simple. The best place in many high-rises is an interior stairwell, because that's going to be cement all the way around. Just go in there, and you won't miss it. When it's over, take your watch with you, and well, we can tell you that the bad part of the storm is going to be over by probably 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then it'll probably, the bad part may even be in the 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. range.
You said that investigators will be going into some of these high-rise condos, and they will let you know when it's safe
Not just high-rise condos, every building that has suffered some sort of damage. Now, high-rise condos along the beach, the threat from the storm surge is that this water will rush in and erode out under them. We have never had a high-rise condo collapse due to a hurricane, but we came that close in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in Hurricane Hugo.
I remember.
Where remember that one leg was sticking on out there. Now, what you don't know in your condo, you may live in a building that seems very substantial and it's made out of good concrete. But what we don't know is what happened under the sand when that thing was put in there. And I guarantee you that nobody in your building knows. You may have somebody in your building saying, this is a great building. This building has been here for years. But you don't know what kind of shortcuts that builder took when that thing was originally built. So you don't know when the water comes rushing in and starts dragging the sand back out with it, what's going to happen to the underpinnings of that building. So for how many reasons can we list? Being along the coast is the worst possible place you can be tonight. You still have at least an hour to take action. We have plenty of shelters to go to. Being along the coast anywhere is the worst possible place you can be. And if for some reason you are stupid and stubborn enough to stay along the coast, then you want to do exactly the same thing that I told you about the inland places, but you don't want to go to the bottom floor because your life will be threatened there because of the incoming water. You want to go down to around the third floor and get in that interior stairwell and just hope that your building survives the onslaught of the water as it comes ashore.
Speaking of water, we just have been told that the city of Fort Lauderdale is closing the water mains that lead out into Fort Lauderdale Beach in an effort to safeguard the water pressure.
Right, okay, for exactly the reason that we talked about, because if you lose water pressure in the water system, then you contaminate the water, because it's the pressure that keeps the contaminants in the water glued against the side of the pipes. And as soon as you lose the pressure, then you get all kinds of swirling and bubbling in the water main, and air gets in there, and it scours the inside of the pipes and like that. So that's when you get contaminated water, and then you have to boil the water. And the problem is, of course, that for most people, after a hurricane with no electricity, you can't boil the water. So they want to do everything they can. People should not be on Fort Lauderdale Beach anyway. It's an evacuation area.
Exactly.
So theoretically, water is not going to be used out there. And maybe that's a wonderful thing. Why don't we just shut off all the power and the water to the evacuation zone and see if that doesn't motivate a few people to go. But in any case, it looks like to me that this might help move some people off Fort Lauderdale Beach. But that's why they did it, because the responsible people in the inland sections of the county, they want to preserve the good water for them as long as possible.
It's amazing, what they can do. These water managers, yesterday they drained almost all of the canals in the affected area. And, down between 6 inches and a foot yesterday, it says. That was in Broward and Palm Beach County. And they're lowered even further by using a series of ocean spillways in anticipation of what they're saying, 8 inches of rain, possibly.
Although I really don't think it's going to be that much. We may have some isolated parts of South Florida that get 8 inches of rain, but as fast as the storm is going by, I would think more in the 5-inch range. But again, isolated areas could get 8 inches, and of course 8 inches falling in a period of 8 or 10 hours, is a flooding rain. There's just no two ways about it. But a fast, small hurricane is the kind of hurricane that does not produce significant rainfall.
A lot of rain. Earlier tonight, we were talking about the homeless situation. It was really frightening because by one person's estimate, there was as many as 800 homeless people still roaming the streets of downtown Miami. We understand that Miami police have gotten buses and have gone downtown to some of these areas, the mud flats under 395, and started rounding some of these people up. And by Susan Wallace's estimation about a half hour ago, some 200 of these people are getting on the buses, most not willingly, we might add, but they are getting on the buses and being taken to shelters, which is good news.
First of all, we don't know that there were really 800 people there. That was I think, a homeless person that actually gave us that information. But we clearly do know that there are many people that did not take the police officer's advice. I guess I would like to see maybe someone besides the police go down there and try and talk these people into it. It's a huge problem. Hopefully the police will have the ability to go down there one more time. There is certainly time. Let's go ahead and look at the radar. And I don't know how much you folks in the control room can leave that up, but if we can just leave that up there as much as we can, I think that people at home would appreciate that, and we will actually see this thing happen here right before our eyes down there in the lower part of the screen.
We talked about the buses taking the homeless in Miami. The folks in Miami Beach remind us that they are still running buses from City Hall to shelters, even at this hour. So if you can get yourself to City Hall, that's where you need to go. They'll take you on a bus to a shelter. If you need their number, the number is 673-7142. That is the only number that is working for them at this point.
That's all right, okay.
673-7142. If by any means you can get down to City Hall, they will get you off.
And we knew that there were cabs still working at the airport. There's no reason why a cab company shouldn't be working at this point. So hopefully, even if you needed to get a cab, maybe you can still get it on the beach. I don't know that, but as I said, there were some at the airport, and the weather conditions here have not deteriorated to the point that there's no reason why safely cabs can't operate here for the next hour or so.
A lot of folks are worried about their pets, especially those who have to go to the shelters. We want to remind people that you are not allowed to take pets to shelters. But as far as Metro Zoo is concerned, we talked to Ron McGill a couple of hours ago, and he said they're looking pretty good shape. They're on high enough ground. They have the animals put away. The birds, this was a rather amusing note, they actually have birds stashed in bathrooms at this point. And he said this is something that they have prepared for. They have plenty of food, plenty of water for the animals. I believe he is going to staying there. He has a full staff.
Well, he's not in an evacuation zone. And as you know, there at Metro Zoo, they have essentially these little bunkers for each of the animals in each of their little areas. I mean, the animals are used to going into those little bunkers, so I don't think we have a problem there. One thing, we're going to go to Bob Sheets here in less than 30 seconds about your car. Again, get it in the garage if you can. Get it in a high-rise parking garage if you'd be your next choice. Get it in the middle of a big parking lot with no trees around would be your third choice. Your fourth choice would be put it right next to the house, but get it away from trees. That's it, okay? All right, let's go to Dr. Bob Sheets with the 11 o'clock advisory, now live at the Hurricane Center.
Good evening. Hurricane Andrew continues to move on its westward course toward southeast Florida. The eye of the hurricane is expected to cross the Miami area somewhere around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. The outer bands of the hurricane are now coming across South Florida. Those continuous bands, heavy rain, and strong winds will be moving across the coast here around 2 to 3 a.m. this morning. I'm Bob Sheets from the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida.
All right, we do have the latest advisory that Brian Allen just brought in from the Storm Center here, and we've talked a lot about the pressure being somewhat stationary, somewhat even, although the wind speed has been lowered to 140 miles per hour. We're still talking about a Category 4 hurricane, and we're not looking at any significant change in the effects that we expect. And Yvette Wiley has brought us the Miami Herald.
You can see the big headline, the big one. This is Monday, August 24th, the forward edition. Hurricane of our nightmares is knocking at the front door. And what they have here, I don't know if you can come in on this, it looks like they have a very large picture of some folks on an evacuation bus headed for the shelter. These are residents from the Gem Care Center in Miami Beach, and as you can imagine, they look quite frightened. Wow.
I guess we haven't said this in a while, and for you folks maybe now that are just tuning in what sense this is the big one. I mean, that it is, whoever thought of that headline is picked the right headline. In many ways, this is a worst-case hurricane for South Florida. A lot of things go into making it a worst-case hurricane. First of all, its strength. Clearly, it could be a stronger hurricane. Clearly, it could be a bigger hurricane. But a hurricane approaching from the east or the southeast is in a position to push the water right up the coast, up the Intracoastal Waterway, up the New River in Broward County, up the Miami River in Dade County, because it's got the right angle to act like a big scoop and push it up into the bay. So in that sense, it's the worst case. Depending on the angle the hurricane comes, the strength of the hurricane, all that makes a total difference. But we do have the latest coordinates, thanks to Brian Allen in the Storm Center. If you just want to go ahead and prove to yourself how close this is, at 25.4 north, so it has not deviated at all in a north-south direction. It is on an absolute due west course. Longitude is 78.1. And the winds, as you see, at 140 miles per hour. But again, the hurricane, as it moves out of the Bahamas and moves over the Gulf Stream, and the Gulf Stream actually runs into the tip of Florida here, so the Gulf Stream comes or jam up to the coast, is very warm water. Whether that will kick it back up a little bit, we don't know, but we're still talking about a massive, horrendous hurricane moving west at 16 miles per hour, and you see now only 135 miles away. So I think it'll be fascinating. I'll tell you what, let's look at the satellite picture. We haven't looked at this in quite some time. We've been so involved in other things, and there you see it as it comes on in, and it just tightens up. You can see it seems to be shrinking a little bit. Those outer bands seem to be shrinking a little bit. That's that whole process that it goes through of pulsing in and out. So I think we've done all we can do to assure you that it is coming. We'll leave, I think we can leave that radar picture up there in the corner as we go through and just see if in the next hour here we can give any sort of guidance to people that may still be able to do something for them here. We have about 1 hour to do this.
You know, the people who are staying at their homes during all of this are probably thinking, this is such a surreal thing. This can't be happening. It's a surreal thing
for us. I feel like we're in a movie here or something.
I said to you, what's worse, the anticipation of the actual storm? This is what 30 years, it's been in the making. And everybody has been saying it's long overdue. As soon as June 1st comes, we're supposed to store all of those things. And we just have a tendency as human beings, I would suppose, to think we're above this. It can happen to me. Well, it is happening, and as the paper says, it is the big one.
I have not been able to actually communicate directly with the emergency managers because I've been doing a lot of work with them lately, working on the hurricane specials that we just did this year to talk about this whole evacuation issue and how we motivate people and how we let them know where they should go. So I've come to know Art St. Amand and Kate Hale very well, and I've been wanting to ask them if they ever really thought this would happen. You know, but they have both performed brilliantly in both of those operations, and Billy Wagner down in the Keys, who I also know very well. The shelter operation has been, for whatever reason, and maybe because so many people have acted irresponsibly, we won't know till after this is over and we see how many people die in this thing. But for whatever reason, it really has, the shelter operation has gone magnificently.
There are 37 evacuation centers in Broward County alone, as Steve Abrams reported just a few minutes ago. Only a fraction of them are being utilized, and of course the big question is, where are all the people?
And we really don't know. I don't think we have a good answer on that. Where are all the people? I know clearly we have a lot of people that are sitting out in the evacuation zones along the beaches and behaving in a way that we do not want them to behave. But we really don't know if there are a lot of people out there, or if the people that we've seen are the visible ones. I mean, I don't think we really have a reading on that, and at this late date, I don't think we're going to until tomorrow morning.
I wonder what people can do right now to ease their anxiety a little bit. I mean, if anything, you certainly can't sleep, although it would be a good idea because it's going to be a long, hard day tomorrow.
It is, although it's going to be a long, hard day in some ways, but for most of us here in South Florida, the 3 million people or so that live in Dade and Broward County, for most of us, it's going to be a very nasty night tonight, and there's going to be nothing to do, or very little to do tomorrow, except for go out and clean up some debris around your house. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. You're going to be waiting for the city or the county, or depending on where you live, to get out there and open up roads. Tomorrow is not going to be the day for you taking any action with your business or anything like that. You may want to tend to difficulties at your own property, at your own home, to make yourself as comfortable as possible without electricity and without air conditioning and whatnot. But tomorrow is not the day to plan to go out and deal with your boat or deal with anything else, because the roads, I can tell you, Ed Odell has told us what it's like in Nassau there tonight. The roads are all blocked because of downed power lines and trees. And of course, in Charleston, we had people killed because of those power lines, both because of a worker and also because of people touching down power lines, which is a very common problem. So tomorrow is not the day to plan to do anything but deal with your own situation right where you are.
You talked about the business owners and possibly not doing anything. We're just seeing newspaper clippings right now talking about business owners and what they will do. Brian, how soon will the governor enact the National Guard to come and prevent against looting?
That's going to happen tomorrow. This storm is going to be gone in plenty of time for those planes to leave Orlando, and I suspect we're going to see National Guard here tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon.
There's not going to be any reason for it, though. As you can see outside, Brian Allen, if you could get the 11 o'clock local data just to see what the winds being reported officially at Miami Beach are, if we're still getting those reports in. And I wonder if we can see. Can we punch up the Grove Cam once just to see if we can see down there? It's nighttime, and it's at that Cocoa Walk there in Coconut Grove. And I'm looking at those palm trees, and I'm not seeing much movement. But my point is that a frozen picture?
You know, I think it is. It is indeed a frozen.
It is a frozen picture.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not going to do us much good.
So that's not doing us any good. I thought that looked awfully. No, that we see a car driving there. It's not a frozen picture. But the point is that no, unless that's a new kind of frozen picture where cars move in the frozen picture. But you can see we don't have much wind going on now. So my point I was going to make is, in the same way that we're going to go fairly rapidly here from essentially calm conditions to blustery conditions to dangerous conditions. Thank you, Brian. We are reporting on the beach, however, gusting to 37 miles an hour now, and winds out of the north at 15. West Palm Beach is gusting to 25, but Miami Airport has north at 17, so not a whole lot different than we just have on a breezy South Florida day. Going from this kind of weather fairly rapidly in the next 2 or 3 hours to very strong winds in the same way as when the rear of the storm goes by, it's going to fall off fairly rapidly, and the sky is going to clear. And as soon as they clear any debris off the airport, those airplanes are going to be able to come in.
You talked about tornadoes that sometimes accompany hurricanes. Are they right alongside them? Does it take a while?
In the radar picture you're looking at there, in those feeder bands that wrap around the storm, that's where the tornadoes occur. Those yellow blobs you see are intense thunderstorms. And in the same way that on a summer day here or a spring day or a day in the Midwest, those intense thunderstorms generate tornadoes, and that's where they're generated. So in every hurricane, we almost always hear of some tornadoes being generated, although in general, they are not those massive Midwestern tornadoes. But they generally do damage. I remember in Hurricane Cleo, tornado coming through and knocking out, not too far from where I was, went down between two rows of houses and took out all the pool screening on all the homes there, but did very little damage to the homes. So it wasn't a strong tornado. Not that we can't have significant damage from them, but the bigger threat tonight really is the hurricane, but you just need to know that tornadoes is also part of the whole package.
For our viewers who have never been through a hurricane, you've been through several. Tell us what we can expect in terms of what we will see, what we will feel, what we'll hear.
Well, you're not going to see much because it's going to be nighttime for a good part of this thing. As the winds pick up, which we expect in the next couple hours, you can clearly see on the shot we have right there how close. You have to ignore all that green that's around the middle of the radar there. Ignore that because we're using the old Miami radar, and again, that's the ground clutter, if you want to call it that.
So we're looking at the yellow and the darker green.
We're looking at everything that's swirling around offshore. There's a whole blob right around the red there, and that's what we're ignoring. But the whole swirl out there, you can see is very close to the coast, maybe 10 or 15 miles off the coast in Broward County, maybe 20 miles. So we're probably another hour away from that first band approaching Broward County, and maybe another hour from the intense part of the storm approaching the Dade County coast. Bob Sheets, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
We're keeping the Miami radar up continuously here as much as we can because I can't think of anything else that impresses on people that the storm is on our doorstep at this point. And if anybody has any last thoughts about finally getting off the beach or whatever, hopefully this will motivate them. We're seeing on the Miami radar, the live Miami radar, those yellow severe thunderstorms in that outer band. But what kind of winds that can we expect in there?
Well, the airplane shows about 75 to 80 mile per hour winds in this outer band right out here.
Bob, tell me that once again. I'm sorry, you were stepped onto my ear.
In this here outer band here, the airplane is showing about 75 to 80 mile per hour winds, and those bands are coming along here. And then, of course, in here, that's the strongest part of the hurricane, right in the eye wall region, right around the eye there.
All right, we can see, if we can put up the live Miami radar, I know that you can't see our shot, but you're looking at a different thing there. On the west side of the eye, in other words, our side of the eye, we are seeing a semicircle of, looks to me like a VIP 3 there, at least. Of course, it's a long way out. That is indeed the eye wall, is it not?
This one out here, the VIP 3 that you're seeing all the way out here, that's getting fairly close to the coast here. The eye, that's some distance from the eye wall.
No, I'm talking about right around the eye. We can see a semicircle of at least VIP 3 and some VIP 4 in there, right around the eye itself.
That's the bigger eye there, that the about 20-mile kind of diameter of eye that you're seeing in there, and that's what you're seeing out there at a distance of about 130 miles or so.
All right, so the outer fringe there where we're getting, I assume, tropical storm force winds in that first band that's approaching the coast. What do we have, about 15 or 20 miles offshore now? Is that about where you figure?
The outer fringe, yes, and about here 50 to 75 miles from the coast. That's where we're going to see those near hurricane force winds as those bands come across.
All right, so we're talking about 3 or 3.5 hours for that based on a 15 or 16 mile an hour movement.
Somewhere around 2 a.m.
Okay. All right, Bob, once again, thank you very much, and we'll stay with you as long as we can here. All right.
We got a couple of notes while you were on the air with Bob. FP&L is advising us, which really comes as no surprise, that they're warning folks to expect your electricity to be off for a week. If you lose electricity, a week is what the ballpark figure that they're throwing out. And from what you have said, that would not be at all unusual.
No, as a matter of fact, just to say again, in Hurricane Betsy, the power was out in parts of the city here for about 8 days, and Hurricane Betsy was not even a hurricane in Dade County, except in extreme southern Dade County, but in Miami, Coral Gables, it was not of hurricane force. So, and that was 8 days, although we have, I guess, made some advancements in that area since then, but still, you can just imagine the task. First of all, before any work can be done on the electricity, the roads have got to be cleared. And the nightmare in Hurricane Hugo was the cities, for good reason, to get emergency vehicles down the roads, cleared the debris to the side of the roads where the power lines were, and then they couldn't get up to deal with the power lines. So in the case, of course, when we have a lot of power lines going through backyards here, and trees may be down in backyards, and the city's not going to deal with those trees because that's not their problem. Their problem is to clear the roads. So you can imagine what a task it's going to be for FP&L to get to all the down power lines before they can turn the power back on.
And speaking of which, to a lot of you, this is common sense, but please don't ever go near a down power line.
Even
ever.
if you think it might be dead, even if you think it might be dead, if your power is off and a power line is down behind your house, there is no guarantee that that line is still not live, because it may be actually part of the next grid over. There's just no guarantee.
We want to remind the folks that we are simulcasting on Y100 Radio. If for any reason we lose our power from our tower, you can tune us in. We will continue to broadcast. Again, that's 100.7 Y100. We also got word that this also comes as no surprise. We just talked about this a little while ago. Miami International Airport officially closed at 11. I think you had talked about maybe 2 cargo planes going out.
I mean, essentially, it was closed significantly before that in terms of any passenger planes.
Governor Childs already asking President Bush to declare Dade, Broward, and Monroe counties a federal disaster area so they can qualify for help once Hurricane Andrew passes through. Childs says the damage will be more than the state government can handle. Estimates from various officials say damage could range from 10 to 15 billion, which, by the way, would be about 3 times worse than Hugo back in 1989.
And Hurricane Hugo's damage totals were in the $5 billion range, $5 to $6 billion range, and some estimates even saw $7 billion. But that was the total culmination of all the damage in the Caribbean, as well as South Carolina. So that was a total, not one strike. And this storm, of course, if it hits, when it hits us, it's done here. Then it hits Naples and Fort Myers, and it's done there. And still, someone on the Gulf Coast is going to get this hurricane. So this, we can, I think, certainly say without question, this is going to be the most expensive natural disaster ever to hit the United States, because Hugo was the most expensive.
When you talked about the hurricane moving across the state and it's going to affect the Gulf, is there a possibility that it would move across the state, stall in the Gulf, and come back? Isn't that what happened with Hurricane Elena in 1985?
Well, remember Elena, I guess you were in Tampa during Elena, weren't you? It went back and it made those loop-de-loops up there. They evacuated Pensacola, turned to the right, they evacuated the Tampa Bay area, and up there, Cedar Key, turned around, went back, and they had to evacuate the Pensacola area again. It was a nightmare evacuation, but I mean, they had a handful of people to deal with up there compared to what we have to deal with down here, of course. But the answer is no. The way the weather pattern is set up here, this storm is charging right along, and it may deviate a little bit when it gets up into the Gulf, and there's some significant uncertainty exactly what's going to happen. But this huge high pressure system that has done this to us is very large and very wide, essentially, and it's going to take it on to the west and keep it going.
Okay. All right.
All right. We have plenty more here. We did the car. All right, here's how safe are under stairwells surrounded with concrete walls? Under stairwells, I assume this is in a condominium of some kind, is a wonderful location to be. Anywhere surrounded with concrete walls and with concrete over your head, you cannot imagine during the intense part of the storm that's going to come in the very early morning hours, probably starting around 3 a.m. or so. From that period to maybe 9 or 10 a.m., I can't even imagine a better place to be.
Did we talk about gas lines? I know somebody had brought in some questions about people wanting
John
to know
Lugring was asking about that. He was helping down in the Storm Center and taking several calls.
Right.
The bottom line on gas is shut it off at the meter. Shut it off as close to the street as you can shut it off. And the reason for that is if anything should happen in your house, if you should have any kind of problem that would break the gas line in your house, you don't want it spewing gas in your house until you can figure out how to shut it off.
Right.
You don't want any gas in your house during the intense part of the hurricane. So our suggestion is that you go out to the street, to the meter, or whatever, as far out of your house as you can get to shut off the gas as the hurricane is approaching. Then after the hurricane is over, you can go turn it back on again, assuming everything is okay.
Channel 4's Jose Diaz-Balart is just back from South Beach, and he put this late report together. Jose?
The only cars you'll see tonight are Miami Beach police cruisers. You guys are out here pretty much to make sure what?
Try and keep the crowds off the beach. Make sure everybody's safe out here. That's basically it.
You're not supposed to be out here at all, right?
No, definitely not. We want everybody off the beach.
And we've been doing a little tour of here. There is nobody out here.
Everyone seems to clear out. Everyone's apparently taking heed of the storm.
And there is a very good reason why everybody should be off of Miami Beach by now. In the past hour we've been here, we've seen the wind pick up considerably, and the tide is also picking up. Now, there's not a lot of clouds in the sky, especially coming from out in the ocean, but that will change very, very quickly, and that's why officials want everybody off of Miami Beach. But not everyone is evacuating. There is an evacuation order for Miami Beach, and yet you're going to stay here throughout the storm?
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I'm not, I hope that I don't sound like an idiot. I'm very concerned. I've come from New England, and I'm aware of the magnitude of the storm. But I am going to stay. I have a hotel down further and involved in the fashion industry. Half a dozen businesses have asked me to keep an eye on them.
But wouldn't it be wiser to step out, go out, maybe a little bit inland, and then come back after the storm?
Well, the way I saw the evacuation on television, it just seems like they're, evacuating everyone and throwing them further and further in. I was today waiting with some senior citizens at my hotel, and it took them 4 hours to be picked up. Then I saw the condition of the shelters, and I'm really concerned about the lower end from 5th Street down. There's a lot of families down there. That
are staying?
That are staying. It's amazing how many people are actually here on the beach. I mean, these kids are out rollerblading and everything else out here. The spirit of South Beach is footloose and fancy-free, and maybe we're taking a little bit too much, but, I'm out here, taking a look around, and it's a very eerie feeling.
I'm going to stick it through.
Have you done anything to prepare yourself?
Yeah, tape the windows. We went and got water, food.
The tape won't do anything for 145-mile-an-hour winds.
I know. I'm aware of this.
But you're still going to stay out here?
I'm still going to stick it through.
I'm scared. Don't think for a minute that I'm like saying, oh, this is nothing. I've been in touch with my family in Boston. I'm kind of like, saying there are personal reasons why I've opted to stay. And it kind of, gets ahead of you, and you're stuck here. You might think, well, just hitchhike out now, whatever. I've got other people back at the hotel. We had seniors that would not leave.
It's a tragic situation, and he said after seeing the condition of the shelters, but I've got to tell you, after seeing the condition of the shelters we were showing tonight, the shelters look like a wonderful place to be. And I think we could say this again, that anyone that feels threatened, there is clearly, unnecessarily, but clearly lots of room in shelters all over South Florida tonight, and the shelters are in the western section. So if you're sitting out there anywhere in South Florida and you do not feel safe in your house, I happened to walk into the storm center and my phone was ringing, and I picked it up and I talked to some folks in Little Havana and Jose Diaz-Balart confirmed this, by the way, that we were the prime station for Little Havana out there tonight. So they're watching us and staying with us through this thing. But in any case, I talked to a wonderful lady who said, what do you think? I'm not in an evacuation area, but I don't have anything on my windows. I'm here with my mother. Should we go to a shelter? And what I said is, why not? Why would you take a chance?
Err on the side of caution.
Right. You're talking about driving down the road a couple of miles, and you're going to spend the night there. You're not going to be in an evacuation zone, so the odds are that you're going to be one of the first people allowed back into your neighborhood to get back to your home. So why not go? And especially since, as you can see clearly in the picture down there right below us in the corner of the screen, this storm is imminent, but you can also look outside and see that the weather is fine for driving a few miles down the road. So you have time to do it.
Yeah, and again, the folks on Miami Beach, we just saw, the storm got ahead of us, and I'm not going to hitchhike. The buses are still leaving, so please.
From City Hall.
From City Hall, they'll take you to a shelter.
They'll do it until they can't do it safely any longer. But if you're waiting to see how bad it's going to be, then it is absolutely guaranteed to be too late. They will not be running at that point.
Want to pass along a note. We talked about the National Guard earlier and how early they will be enacted. The National Guard is requesting that all personnel from the 743rd Unit to report to the Armory in Fort Lauderdale no later than 11 a.m. Monday, order per Governor Childs. And that's what we've been waiting for.
That's interesting. The Armory in Fort Lauderdale, I don't know how the National Guard system down here is set up, but it's interesting that they would have, maybe that's just where the Armory is. I don't know. I shouldn't speculate on why they would pick the Fort Lauderdale Armory, I guess.
If you had to guess how many people are now sleeping at Miami International Airport, what would you guess?
I would think maybe a couple thousand.
It is 2,500 people. The folks at Miami International just called us and they said 2,500 people are now spread out at the airport, but they want to remind you that they are not a shelter. And I would imagine the people who did get stuck there are indeed that, stuck. They couldn't get their flights out.
And they're going to be stuck there until the situation turns around. Ned Smith, you're with us. I understand you just came in from the airport?
Yeah, it is an eerie feeling, if you've ever been into that crowded airport, to still believe it is crowded. People stranded here from everywhere, all parts of the world. In fact, we brought back some video just a few moments ago, and we'll go to that. Already the headlines of the big hurricane that is about to hit South Florida has reached the people there. They are reading about it. As I said, thousands of people stranded, from those that have missed their cruise ship to those trying to get home to Italy. As a family, are you worried about having to sit out a hurricane inside the airport?
I don't know, not really. I mean, we don't know what to expect. Nobody knows what to expect. Nobody came here and told us anything. We really don't know what's going on, so.
But you can't get out of here either.
Yeah, I know. But that's all we have to do. We got to stay here and wait.
Are you worried about spending
Well, I say it's the first time. I don't even know, can imagine what it is, because I never lived something like that.
We were late for our cruise ship. They were told to keep us in Atlanta, but they decided to fly us here anyway. They were told to keep us in Atlanta.
And go back home if we want to, or go on the ship tomorrow. We're supposed to be on the Dolphin, SS Breeze.
Right.
And so here we are, look where we are, no place to sleep. And I've been trying, it's 30 of us from Philadelphia.
This vacation was to have started today.
Today, right.
This is my first cruise after 30-some years of planning, and I'm very, very disappointed.
Well, I see you're trying to spend the time the best way by reading, but maybe after experiencing this, you can write a book after this.
I think so. How I spent my summer vacation.
That's right. It's tough, isn't it? I mean, going through the whole idea?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Are you frightened knowing that?
Frightened? No, I wouldn't say I was frightened, but concerned.
Concerned is probably the key word there, because as most of those people said, they have never experienced a hurricane. They don't know what to expect. And Brian, you've been talking about that all day, that many people from outside this country are now 2,500 or so stranded at the airport. They don't even know what a hurricane is all about, and people are coming by and speaking to them about it. But again, they don't know what 150-mile-an-hour winds feel like, but they feel very safe, and yet they're still pretty perturbed about the fact they have to spend the night in the airport.
Ned, I couldn't quite tell where they were. Was it your sense they were well away from the windows? I'm trying to think of a part of the airport that doesn't have windows within inside of it.
Most of the people were closer to the terminal part, away from the windows. Again, the only doors are glasses, you know, as you walk into Miami International Airport. But most of them were away pretty much toward the center of the airport. I didn't see much glass around there. And to be frank, I mean, some people had already set up beer and snacks, and we're going to make kind of a picnic-type party out of the idea, because like most of them, the people from Italy there and from Philadelphia know that they have to make the best of it, so that's what they were going to do. But again, there was no glass in that area.
Well, yeah, in that immediate area, but certainly down the concourse there and over by the entrance to the airport. You know, just imagine if we have winds blowing in here at 140 miles an hour and those windows go out along the concourse and expose that area to wind. It's going to be a frightening situation out there. Tonight we have something about Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport now.
Yeah, with this Fort Lauderdale Hollywood, they closed out the airport, it says.
It's in an evacuation zone. They are in an evacuation zone, and Jim Reynolds told us they were going to evacuate the airport today, except for a few key people.
Took them on buses to shelters, which is a great idea. We talked earlier tonight about the hospital, Jackson Memorial, having 250 pregnant women walking around. Mm-hmm. Jackson wants to remind you that they only want to take Jackson patients, women who were scheduled to have their babies at Jackson. These are women who are 3 weeks away from their due date or high-risk pregnancies. And they also want to remind you that you cannot bring anyone else with you. They simply do not have the means to take care of other people, children, significant others, that type of thing. We also got word from Memorial Hospital in Hollywood and Memorial Hospital West in Pembroke Pines. They are at capacity. They are not taking expectant mothers. Memorial Hospital in Hollywood will only take adult and pediatric trauma.
I guess we can't stress enough that the hospitals are not shelters, but we also, as you see on the image here right below us, that the edge of the storm is rapidly approaching here, and you do have a just quickly fleeting amount of time to go if you're going to go, and if you are pregnant and you are afraid and you do have a hospital to go to, then now is the time to get out there and go, or get to a shelter where they actually do, in many of the shelters, have some nursing help. At least if you've been just debating on whether you're going to go, you still have time to go at this moment. But as you see, the strong winds are right offshore as we speak.
You know, all of us have anxiety about this coming hurricane. Can you imagine being 9 months pregnant through this?
Yeah, and I think I would rather be, unless I were in a very secure place with good help, I would rather be in a Red Cross shelter, knowing that I had a paramedic or someone there. I would.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Not want to be trapped in my house.
We understand that Brian Allen is down in the Channel 4 Help Center, where we have been taking calls all day and night about what to do in this hurricane. Brian, what's going on?
That's right, Kelly and Brian. Believe it or not, this is something that Brian Norcross was just alluding to about. We're really into a small margin of time here. And I know Brian's frustration because we've been trying to deal with this all day long. We are still getting phone calls at this hour from people in high rises. We're talking 10th, 12th floor, even 15th and 16th floor, wondering if it's all right for them to stay. And I know that we've really beat this issue over and over, but Brian, is it still too late for them to try and at least get to a shelter so that we can make this point one more time that a high-rise is definitely not the place to be?
No, as we're looking at the radar image here, we can see that the strong winds are still offshore. And especially for people in the inland sections, the shelters are all in the inland sections. So I mean, we can't say enough times in enough ways that any structure along the coast where most of the high-rises are, or right on the water, in the evacuation areas, are not under any circumstances a place to be. And indeed, there are even shelters reasonably close to those places that you can still make it to here tonight. But if you're inland in a high-rise without any kind of shuttering on the window, you also do not want to stay in that building, or at least in your apartment. If you have a safe area down at the bottom of the building, then you could stay there. But if you do not, you have plenty of time to get to a shelter, because the shelters are going to be right around the corner from you there in the western sections of the county.
So again, as Brian mentioned, you still have time. We'd like to see you at least try to get to a shelter. We're still dealing with this issue of opening windows or closing windows. Keep the windows closed. We've gone over this one many, many times.
Why don't we just say, if you want to open the window, it's stupid, but go ahead and do it, and then nobody will call.
Okay.
There's no way we can say that any more clearly.
That's
Close
true.
the windows.
That's very true. We also have a couple of things here right now, and this message is sort of coming in fragments. We've got BSO deputies, I'm assuming right now, that are trying to figure out who are supposed to be on duty tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. If their shift commander can try to get a hold of them, or else if they can figure out a way to get a hold of their upcoming shift commander. Some of the deputies have called in saying they're concerned about 7 a.m. travel, because that's when we're looking for landfall of the eye of the hurricane. Also, once again, we're still talking about electricity, what to do. Go ahead and turn most of the circuit breakers off. Leave one on with just, say, a small lamp. That way you'll know, and you won't be blowing out the compressors on your air conditioner. You're also on your refrigerator as well. And again, if you can still fill up some water, you still have a little bit of time here, some tap water to at least have on hand for drinking, and you can probably get it in the freezer here for a little bit to at least get some chill going on that to help keep things going if the power does go. Brian, we are getting some interesting questions here, not so much about tonight now, but about tomorrow and how we're going to be relaying information to people as far as downed power lines, water problems, and also gas problems if we have them. Can you kind of go into detail about what people can expect from us tomorrow?
Well, I wish we could tell you what to expect from us. I wish we could tell you that we would be here as we are now, doing exactly what we're doing now, giving you the information. But just judging by experience in other hurricanes and Hurricane Hugo and other situations like this, the bottom line tomorrow most likely is going to be that you're going to have to fend for yourself. And we're going to do everything we can do to be at least on Y100 providing information. But if essentially the entire metropolitan area is shut down because of an inability of us to move around, to get in communication with people, which is very, very possible. In fact, at after the storm, immediately after the storm tomorrow, it's even probable until the machinery can get into effect to start opening things back up again. Just depending on what happens here tonight, we may not be able to be here right away, even on Y100, to communicate with you. And things like down power lines, there's going to be a lot of common sense that's going to be required from everybody out there. You are going to